I'm Paul John Dykes, and today in the studio I'm joined by Ewan Martin. This is your 5th appearance on Acsom. Ewan, how are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just got here in time today because traffic not so good from the west to the east, but aye, all good.
So you took about 3 hours to get to a State of Mind studio
Aye, well,
in Dalkeith.
from Dunoon, get the ferry first, and then yeah.
This is dedication, mate.
2.5 hour drive, and then I've got the same going home today. So aye.
It's dedication. What I love on match day is on social media, you wake up and people have already set off and they're coming over from Ireland to watch the hoops. It's tremendous. The level of dedication is incredible that the fans show week in, week out. And today we will talk about today's game, of course. We'll also get an opportunity to hear what your thoughts are, Ewan, about the season so far, because you've not been on since we kicked off the new campaign. Let's have a wee look at the Scottish Premiership table before we start today. Celtic sitting second, virtue of us having a game in hand. Of course, Rangers played Hearts earlier on today at Tynecastle and won that game. We are, other than one little blip, on a tremendous run of form. It took us a whole year virtually without a loss in the league, Ewan, and Ange Postecoglou was talking about that during the week. I don't think, certainly you watch when you're not on the show, you watch a Celtic State of Mind. There wasn't really a knee-jerk reaction from us, but I think that, you look at social media and there was a reaction, but that's to be expected when you've gone so long without losing a game.
I think the trouble was we've had 2 weeks to kind of like mull over it, and as the days go by, it just grows and grows. More and more folk have got this and that, and you just kind of get this kind of weird feeling of as a bubble bust, but I mean obviously it's not, as you say, it's a blip. But the fact that we didn't have a quick bounce back, I think with the last few days I've seen a few like things going on, and it's getting a bit more like people panicking a wee bit, kind of questioning Ange a little bit. I know it's kind of like not too bad, but as you say, start of the season we were firing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, we were like playing fantastic in the league, scoring tons of goals, and in Europe, Real Madrid, first 45-55 minutes we were as good as them. Obviously, sadly, we kind of lost the 3 goals. But then we play Shakhtar.
Yes.
And we should have beaten them. But this is Champions League. You know what I mean? Away from home. And we're kind of going, we should have won.
Yeah.
Whereas, even like under Martin O'Neill, we couldn't even get a draw away from home in the Champions League. So that shows you how good we've been. And then, bang, St Mirren. Just a terrible day. You know what I mean? Wrong team. I don't know, wrong setup. I think it's the first time Ange has got complacent that day, because what angered me was the fact that, not anger, but disappointed me was we didn't have a game for 2 weeks. Why didn't we start with our strongest 11 that day and get the 3 points and then see, then move forward?
This is the thing, and we've seen it season on season. You want to introduce both fringe players to the team and also younger guys. And again, it's been a big issue, I think, particularly when we were dominating for 9 years, that we didn't give many more young players an opportunity. And I think the best time to do it, and now, by the way, I understand Ange knows a hell of a lot more about football than me.
Oh, yeah.
But as a fan, I've always looked at, these games where you're sitting at 3 and 4-0 up at home, Ewan, and then you give young guys a half hour before you start bringing them in to give them their starts in similar type games. I think when it's a wholesale change, I've always been concerned with that. I think, when we look back to the Morton game, remember Morton beat us in extra time at home?
Yeah.
And you look at the wholesale changes we had made. Yeah, I know we had first teamers in there, some big players in there. We should never have lost the game, but we did. And it's just because there's a rhythm that you've got with the team. And if you remove too many of those players, particularly in the engine room in the midfield, then you lose that rhythm. And that looked as though to me, and I shared this with the group during the game, we got it wrong. Change it. So at half time, that's when I thought we should have made more than a couple. I thought, wholesale changes, get the midfield sorted, and then we'll see how the second half develops from there and progresses from there. We didn't get going, even when we made the changes.
Yeah, I think as well the fact that the defence was all changed for that game. The balance of the team just kind of, because we weren't getting the fullbacks bombing down the flanks. I know they come inverted inside, but. And then the midfield were stagnant, they were slow, they were taking 1 or 2 touches too many. So we weren't doing that normal, fast-flowing, great football that we've seen. Yeah, and then that top, that grey strip, I was just like, oh no, come on, this is. I think everyone knew after like 20, 25 minutes, this game's going the wrong way, innit? And that's before St Mirren had scored.
The unfortunate thing with jerseys, you know how much I love the old Celtic jerseys and that, Ewan, but sometimes, well, a lot of the time you associate a jersey with a game, a performance, and that is both good and bad. I mean, when Adidas introduced their first 3 kits to Celtic, it was at the worst possible time because, you know, we were all geared up for 10 in a row, it didn't happen. So you actually forget how good the kits were back then.
Yeah.
The lime jersey that harked back to Love Street in 1986 was a classic, but we don't have very good memories of it because of the season. And I hope that we can put that right with the grey and yellow kit that we wore against St Mirren. We're going to run through the teams. We've got the teams here, but we also want to bring as many of you guys and girls in as possible. Mark, he actually done a wee favour here. He's given us the team. Thanks. You're watching on YouTube. Hart, Juranovic, Welsh, Yents, Taylor, McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate, Jota, Maeda and Kyogo. On the bench, we've got Siegrist, Haksabanovic, Abada, Forrest, Ralston, Moy, Abielgard, Bernabe and Turnbull. And we will run through the team in more detail, Mark, but thanks for sharing that. We've got Christopher coming in, Christopher Patterson on the YouTube. 3 points is a must today, no slip-ups, no excuses. Well, again, if we were to go to the league table, Ewan, and have a look at our opponents, Motherwell, they're sitting in 8th position. They've had a managerial change already. The last 3 is a loss, a draw and a loss. It's not as though we are coming up against a team who are firing on all cylinders, but we certainly need to get back to that. Looking at that midfield, let's start off with the midfield. That's the strongest midfield we've got, and they complement each other, don't they?
It's the most dynamic. You know, it's quick flowing football. They don't take 2 touches on the ball. They're always passing forward. You know, and they're intelligent with their play as well as being technically really good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the 3. I still think was it Abelgard. I'm hoping he gets on today because I want to see what he's got, because I'm here from what I've heard. He's like technically really really good. Maybe a Champions League kind of player. Mm-hmm. I can understand why he started with the 3 we've got on today, but that midfield's. I think the whole team today picks itself. I mean that's obviously with the defenders out injured. That's my one concern is Welsh at the back. I think at cross balls he's not the best at defending them. You know, so. But yeah, apart from that, it's a good team. Quite
happy with that team. I think there's been a lot of discussions during the week on the Acsom Bulletin and elsewhere in and around some of the elements of this. And I'm going to go back to the game that you were here. You joined myself and Lawrence. Last game of the last season against Hearts, I believe it was.
Yeah, Hearts 4. Was it 4-1?
Yeah. And you made a comment that day. You said that you wouldn't be surprised if Turnbull wasn't part of the plans, and there was a lot of people come on you and saying you're talking nonsense. And by the way, I've got to say I'm a big fan of David Turnbull. I think that he's had a very much a stop-start Celtic career, going right back to when he should have signed and he didn't, and then obviously he didn't get into the team under Neil Lennon until about the October time where he comes in for the game against Lille. But he done enough in that season, a very forgettable season for Celtic fans, but he done enough to get the Young Player of the Year award in Scotland. Followed that up with Ange's first season where, until injury, he was an ever-present. He was a go-to player for Ange Postecoglou. But I think certainly the performance against St Mirren's not going to help his cause much. I think, for me, when I look at everybody being fit, he's an excellent backup. And I'll come back to that when I look at the bench, because I think Forrest is an excellent backup, and I think Ralston's an excellent backup. That's where I've got David Turnbull. When I look at that midfield, and McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly, he's an excellent backup. Will that be enough for the player, though?
Well, see, for me, the thing about... I know he's a good player. He's a gifted player. But I just think for Ange's system, it's a power, pace, quickness. That's not his attributes. I mean, he's not the paciest of players, so he can't really track. He can't cover the ground to to do the press. When he's on the ball, he's got that wee kind of pivot turn he does all the time. Mm-hmm. And he also takes like 1 or 2 touches, looks up. I mean, he is a good player. He can score great goals. But another aspect was his contract. He's coming running down to 18 months left. That's why I was thinking maybe his time is... It's either to sell or sign a new contract. But I just don't know if he's an Ange type player. And that's my whole point about Turnbull. But I mean, but as a sub, I'm happy to have him there.
Yeah, I mean, that was the point you were making. It wasn't so much you had an issue with the player.
Yeah.
You were looking at the system that we had watched for a year by that point, and you were thinking, I'm not quite sure he fits in there. I think he's been, as an individual, unlucky in that the type of player we brought in January really kicked on, Hatate and O'Reilly in particular. So to try and break that midfield up is going to be a very, very difficult task. But then on the flip side, we've got so many games coming up. You would expect him to get a wee bit more game time as well.
13 games in 43 games?
43 days.
That's a lot of games.
It's huge. It's massive. And we get that there is a backlog and it's for matters completely outside of our control. However, it is Celtic that we're going to be concentrating on, and that is a huge amount of games. There's quite a few comments coming in. Paddy Lavery in the comments every single day, every match day. Great to hear from you, and he's given Ewan Boy a big hail because it's normally Ewan Boy Martin who appears with the avatar of the King of Kings, Henrik Larsson, on the chat. Ian McMonigal, afternoon boys, great to be back. Hail, hail. It is great to be back talking about Celtic again. Magnet 67 afternoon, Acsom team watching live from sunny Doha. After a wee slip against the Buddies and the new club's win today, this is a must win. It is, and it is getting to that stage where every game is turning into that point when the gap is only a couple of points. Obviously, we had a cushion. We lost it by getting beat 2-0. Fugees Toner, this is a quality top if you want to buy the Shamrock top, and the colour is a lot better. Ewan can tell from there. That colour doesn't look like that on the screen. It's a much better Shamrock as well. You can click on the link underneath axom.net and get yourself a Shamrock jersey. We were so frustrated that the club never released their own version of this, and I know that you can get it from is it Tops? Was it Tops, I think? You can get the old jerseys online, etc. But we decided to make our own, and it is a cracker. So feel free to support the channel by buying that. Meanwhile, Ewan is wearing a Beatles stroke Kiss t-shirt under his Celtic scarf.
That's just the two bands I kind of grew up, into.
And it's
like in the early 80s, Kiss were massive, and then the Beatles were obviously before that, but I didn't get into the Beatles till after that. When I hit like 18, 19, I got into the Beatles big time, so yeah.
Aye, definitely. Well, Magnet doesn't think we should wear the grey strip ever again.
Yeah, nah, I agree. I thought it's horrible.
We need to put it right. It was one of the jerseys when I seen the images of it, I wasn't sure. It looked more like a kind of training kit. There didn't seem to be much about it. But the more I seen it, and JP wore it one week, I thought, I quite like that. I like the look of that. But then the St Mirren game put a different twist on it entirely. I mean, you think of the lime green kit of days gone by, and you think of the Sporting Lisbon victory where we brought it back at Celtic Park, and then you think of Love Street, and it becomes an iconic jersey.
I just think that grey top looks, as you say, as more like a training top. It didn't look like a proper matchday strip.
I think that kit designers are looking at different things to try and mix it up. There's been a lot of unusual jerseys down south, for example, Man City. They just don't look like football shirts. And they're going obviously for American styles as well. So we will see. Hopefully we can wear that jersey and win a game. We were talking about the midfield. Obviously we've had some tremendous performances by the likes of Hatate, whose pass from the Juranovic throw against Real Madrid is shown again and again and again on social media, and quite rightly so. It was a thing of absolute beauty. We've got McGregor, who's covering the yards, who's playing the games, thankfully without the face mask, and we've got O'Reilly, who is really making an impression at international level, albeit at under 21 at the moment, Ewan, still in the picture for a World Cup place. But I do get concerns. I do have concerns about the fact that the vultures are already circling, and O'Reilly's name is getting mentioned by the likes of Newcastle and Leicester. It's a discussion I had with JP during the week. All season we've been going on about keeping this core that we've got, strengthening again in January. I'll talk about where you think we should strengthen in January. And already we've got interest, and we've got interest in the gaffer. How does it make you feel? Are you concerned, or does Ange give you a wee bit more confidence that he can keep this team together for at least the rest of this season?
Well, put it this way, I don't have any fear that Ange would walk out on us, mid-season. I think he's got much more integrity than a certain previous manager had. No, I mean, it's if you're doing well and you're doing good, you're also going to get speculation about a bigger club. Well, I say bigger, like from a bigger league, can offer a better standard of football and bigger wages. Can come in and try and turn our heads. And again, you've got the Scottish media. They love taking a stoke the fires with us. All your managers, he's away, is it? Oh, that player's going to go, that player's going to go. But no, I think Ange's plan, I think 3, maybe 4. I think if we're lucky, he'll stay for 4. That's like 2 more after this season.
Right.
But I mean, I think he's got a plan to build a team, keep it together. But I think once that team starts to break up, I think he'll move on. Because I think he's got a dream to manage in the English Premiership.
Right. It's a discussion again that we had because Darren O'Day done an interview. I think Darren O'Day speaks really, really well, by the way. But you can hear the influence on people like Darren O'Day and Fran Alonso when he's speaking as well. You can hear Ange's influence. It's as though they're all kind of singing from the same hymn sheet. There's a mantra and they're following it. But he was talking about how there's obviously been an issue with the B team, and there's been an issue with the progression of young players into the first team, Ewan.
Yeah, it's been good enough.
Yeah, it's simply not been good enough. And Ange has had a look at that, and he was overseeing the B team with regards to that being a bridge to the first team. And there was a comment he made about he was overseeing it almost like a director of football. Now, Darren O'Day wasn't suggesting that Ange is like a director of football at Celtic. But it brought up that subject again about the future and the fact that I would love him, right, if his tenure as a manager ends, and it will eventually end, I would love him to still be here. I mean, how often does that happen now? It doesn't. No. I mean, there are managers who have got a lot to give after their managerial career. I mean, I think O'Neill's a prime example, right? And I know that when they were talking about directors of football and all that, a lot of Celtic fans thought, he's had his day. But I just think that with that experience, that level of, gravity that he has, gravitas rather, I just think that, a player, a manager like O'Neill, a manager like Postecoglou has another role. He's got more to give beyond the coaching. So although I get what you're saying, and generally speaking, 3 years is kind of like your cycle with a manager these days. I would much rather he stayed, even if it isn't in the role that he's in at the moment.
Well, I totally would love him to stay, but I just can't see it. But I think what he will do, he won't leave us. When the day comes when he does leave us, he's going to leave us in a really good way. Mm-hmm. The structure of the club will be totally transformed. The way the B team and the youth system works, that'll naturally flow into the first team.
Yeah,
and I think he'll let everyone at the club know the structure of when a player's going, when a player's contract running down, and if you know that they're going to be gone in a year or 6 months, you've got the guy behind them ready to come in. And and again with Ange, it's the system. It's not about the players. It's the system. So if all the players know the system, take one of the players out, just plug one in, and the system will keep working. Mm-hmm. So I think for that's going to be really good. But yeah, ideal world, Ange would stay for a lot longer. But yeah, I think we should just be thankful and appreciate that he's here now and what he's going. And I still think he's going to. I think he's going to make a mark in Europe. I mean, this season maybe, next season definitely.
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, I was asked that question, and I said just that. I said, he's a quick learner, is Ange Postecoglou, and what he's going to be learning in this campaign in the Champions League, he'll take it into next season, hopefully, and make a bigger impression. You're talking there about some of the youth, and I mentioned just the other day there about the fact that Ben Doak, still 16 years of age, Ewan, Ben Doak's been named in a list of the top 20 English Premier League talents to look out for. He's on this golden boy list. He's played 6 games for the under 18s and 19s at Liverpool, scoring 3 goals. Made a big impression. And you look at some of the other players who are in their early 20s or still in their teens who were at Celtic and they've left and they're getting first team football elsewhere, like Leo Held at Leeds United, 19 years of age, Armstrong Okoflex, although he's at West Ham, he's on loan at the moment at Swansea, he's only 20, Karamoko Dembele, 19, and he's at Brest and he's playing first team football. So it's all about having that bridge from the B team to the A team. The other one that was raised during the week last week to me was the 13-year-old Christopher Atherton, who made his debut at 13 for Glenavon 2 weeks ago, right? He made his debut. They were playing in the Cup. Youngest senior player in British football history.
Yeah.
But he was at Celtic.
He was
That
at
young
Celtic.
man was at Celtic. And you look at that progression or lack of, and I think that's something that Ange was probably surprised at, especially when he had to call on the youth. If you look at the pre-season last year and then the early, obviously the playoff in Europe to try and get into the qualifier in Europe to try and get in to the Champions League, and we had to rely on players who weren't ready, young guys who just weren't ready. So that'll be interesting to see over the next few years. Jungle Lion brings in a really good point. He's concerned that there's no striker on the bench, and that is why another one is needed. Now, the conversation around whether or not Celtic need another striker is something that's cropped up a few times on Acsom. I'm of the view that I get that Abada can fill in there and Maeda can fill in and Haksabanovic can fill in there. But the minute you don't have Giakoumakis or Kyogo or one of them's off form, I start getting concerned because we don't have somebody on the bench, a game changer if you like, as a centre forward. Is that something you'd agree with? Is that something we should be looking at in January?
I mean, that was the one place in the window just there. I was crying out for another striker because to only have two, like, recognised proper strikers, as you say, one gets injured or if their form drops, then you've got no other options, you know. And I think as well, now with the defence, losing your two main defenders, all of a sudden you're thinking, are we a centre half short as well?
Yeah.
So for me, yeah, striker, absolutely 100%. We need another striker. The trouble is, you get a striker of a certain quality, they don't want to be third in line when you're only playing one striker. So the best option, I would say, is get a 19-year-old who's really good, who'll be prepared to maybe wait that one season to get a chance. But if he gets a chance early, he's a good player to bring in.
Yeah,
That's what I think anyway. Yeah.
Well, what I'm thinking, looking at this now that the screens are going to be a bit smaller, is I'm definitely in the chair that should be renamed the Peely Wally chair in the State of Mind studio. But I've got to say, you're looking pretty bronzed, even though that camera does turn it up a few shades. And you're looking very healthy sitting over there. But we are in the same room with the same lighting, which is tremendous. Here's the team, if you haven't already seen it. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because of the comment by Jungle Lion. No, we don't have an out-and-out striker on the bench. You've already mentioned there the concerns about the fact that we've got Welsh and Jens. Regardless of what you think of that as a partnership or of those two players individually, the biggest concern I've got is we have no backup. So we're also in that situation, like you say. And I mean, I think we were in the dark a wee bit about what was happening with Julian. Julian then leaves. We brought a player in Jens on loan. But again, a couple of injuries and you're scratching your head.
In an ideal world, when everyone's fit, you think, wow, our squad's fantastic, perfect. But then a couple of injuries and all of a sudden you're going to be, oh, wait a minute, you know, we don't really have any real cover. But today the defence, well, hopefully because we're at home, Motherwell, they shouldn't have too much to do, you know, defending wise. And I mean, to be honest, I think today we'll breeze it. I mean, touch wood, but you know, I think today's a great day to bounce back, show the kind of form we showed at the start of the season. I mean, folk are saying 3 or 4. I think if we get an early goal today, it could be 5 or 6.
Really open it up.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, because that's what we need. Because I mean, we've got a big game in Europe coming up midweek, and we need that kind of confidence back in the team. Because we don't want to go over there and be in a bad kind of like mindset, thinking, oh, we've just blown a couple of games in the league, you know. So no, I think today will be positive. The defence is my only worry because I think Welsh is very suspect when it comes to cross balls out of the box.
Well, the other thing I was going to mention is when you look at that bench, you've got Bernabe, you've got Abelgard, who we've already spoken about briefly. You've got Haksabanovic, who we've seen little cameos, but he has impressed.
He excites me. I think when he's fully fit, I like his power and his pace. It can be very direct as well. I think once he's up to speed, he'll be fighting for to be a regular starter. Yeah,
and you've got to also remember Abada and Maeda, two players again sitting on the bench as Abada today. Maeda starts, but if they're on top form, Jota's on top form, and then Haksabanovic comes into the equation, it gives you the options again. James Forrest, we've mentioned, I think he's a dependable backup, as is Tony Ralston. The other player I'm going to mention here, because it came up in conversation yesterday when Laura was hosting the Acsom Bulletin, and it was around some comments that have been made about Ideguchi and his future at Celtic, because he's almost the forgotten man. You know, when we're talking about the imports,
boy,
you do, you do. We covered that game the night he was injured against Alloa. He's never really got back in. I seen him in the pre-season and he looked sharp, and then he gets injured again. You know,
I think what I heard like midweek there on the show was asking, is he injury prone? I don't think he is, because when you look at the two injuries, the first one was a horrific tackle, and then the second one was as an accidental. He got a really bad leg gash in training.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's pulling up himself now, you know,
like a niggly muscle,
or a niggly injury.
Yeah.
It's been two very unlucky injuries, and at a time when he's come into the team, when the team's flying right now, I think he's just been very, very unlucky.
Yeah, he has, you know, and I think I go back to Liam, because for me, Liam Carrigan is based in Japan. He's been watching all four of the players that we've brought in, and he's been watching them at close quarters. So he's been talking, he holds Maeda in very, very high esteem as well, but he has been talking about Ideguchi and says that, you know, the form he was shown in Japan would have put him on a level with Hatate. Different types of players, Ewan. And that's the one view that I'm holding on to now. I'm gripping onto that, because I think to myself, he might be the kind of forgotten player at the moment, but we might be in for a treat if and when we can get him fit.
I mean, Ange very rarely gets a signing wrong, as we've seen. Ange wouldn't bring the guy from Japan, all the way across here, and not give him a chance in the team, because he's barely played. So we've not had a chance to see what he's got. You know, I think once he, I think in this stretch of games, I think Ange will use him wisely. You know, bring him on like 60 minutes into a game when we're maybe comfortable, give him the game time, get his confidence up, and I think he may surprise people like what he's got to offer.
I hope
Hopefully.
I hope so. Yeah, we are nearing kick-off time, so I understand when people start dropping off to get tuned in and get themselves a wee cold refreshment, etc.
I can't even have a beer because I have to drive all the way home today.
I know there's beer in that fridge as well out there.
No,
wherever you are on the globe, I hope you do enjoy today's show and today's game. Ewan has already said that you're pretty confident you can see it maybe being 4 or 5. Jim Orr spoke about that yesterday. You win this game by, let's say, 3 or 4 goals, and then you're back to as confident and as buoyant as we were a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it kind of washes away the memory almost of St Mirren, because these games do happen from time to time. We do expect them to come along. It's never easy when they do come along. If I'm going to give you my predicted score, I would say 3-1, because I do think that we do have a bit of an issue at centre half at the moment when it's Yents and Welsh, and it's nothing against either of the two players. I just think you take Cameron Carter-Vickers out of that defence, and any of the other permutations are going to be weaker. Of course they are. And I would probably be concerned with any of the other three marrying up with each other without Carter-Vickers.
I think it's maybe kind of shown now that Carter-Vickers is maybe one of the most important players, along with McGregor and probably Joe Hart. Those three, that's kind of like your spine that we just can't do without. You know, so when you lose that part of that spine in Carter-Vickers, and I think today Motherwell's tactic, I think they've obviously watched the St Mirren game and they've seen we lost 2 goals from 2 balls crossing into the box. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy. We struggled. And again, going back to the Welsh thing. I mean, Welsh is a good young player. He's good to the ball at his feet. He's good at coming out. But it's just that basic defending cross balls, you know. So you might be right. We might lose a goal today, because I think Motherwell are going to attack that against us. You know, get the ball in the box. But I think up front, going forward, we'll have far too much for them.
Well, I agree with that. I think we can carve them open. Ryan Kelly, my sound is not working for Celtic TV. Might have to switch to the away side's one for sound. Well, you know, we would have given you commentary, but we tried that in the first season that we did the live streams, and it was pretty clear that we were running behind. People were texting us, telling us about goals, and we were watching live on Celtic TV at the time because everybody was in lockdown. So yes, enjoy the game. If you do want one of these Shamrock jerseys, click on the link underneath the video description. If you want to support the channel in our quest for a 5th Football Content Award down in Manchester this year, again, click on the link underneath. Natasha's also in there for Best in Women's Football. We're up for the Best in Video Creation. We do appreciate all your support time and time again, so thank you very much for all of that. And we will be announcing a few things very, very soon, one of which will be Who is going to be the guest? I wonder who's going to be the guest at Gracie's in January. The special guest will be announced officially on Monday. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you at halftime.
Hail, hail. Come on.